Welcome back to my channel. My name is Pam. I'm from Wellness Untamed, and we are on week 8 of the Three River Pantry Challenge, and this will probably be my last video of what I am doing. Right now I'm just showing you some meat that I got canned up. It's been in my freezer for a while and I pulled it out. Most of it was some beef cuts. There was one, I think, rack of lamb that I pulled out of there, and then I ended up making some beef, or excuse me, it was mainly for the most part lamb bones. And so it was more lamb bone broth that got made afterwards. So that was the first thing, because we really ate all leftovers all week long up until Friday. And then these were some sourdough oatmeal raisin cookies that I made, and I have never made sourdough cookies before, and I gotta say these were pretty good. I think I'm gonna do those again sometime. For Friday night, we did just pizza, a sourdough crust, and we had a steak that we had half of it I had put in the freezer from last week. We cooked steaks on the grill, and we don't eat whole steaks. Like a steak can last me 3 meals. So anyway, I had half of a steak that I just threw in the freezer, and I got that out and we did a steak pizza. This it's hard to tell what that is, but that is a Dutch baby. I did an apple Dutch baby for breakfast on Saturday morning, and it's a sourdough recipe. I'd never made a Dutch baby before. I'm just trying to experiment more with my sourdough starter, and it actually was really good, and it was enough to feed us for 3 mornings. These are eggs that I water glassed last summer. And I just wanted to show that I'm getting ready to make some noodles here, some homemade noodles. And I just wanted to show what those eggs look like. I mean, they still are beautiful. And they've been sitting in jars in a lime solution since the end of last summer, I think. So these are the noodles that I made for beef and noodles. I had a jar of that beef that did not seal, so I thought we could just use that up rather than try to freeze it. And so I made some noodles. I made some extra pasta that I just rolled out in sheets and froze. I'm going to find out how that works. I've never frozen fresh pasta before. And there's the beef and noodles, and then some dragon tongue beans that I had in the freezer. They're really pretty when they are fresh, but then when you cook them, they lose all of their purple coloring, but they're kind of a wax bean, so that's what you see there. I had some microgreens. I think I have one more tray of microgreens down under the lights, but I'm getting to the point where I don't have the starter, the soil starter to start the microgreens with, so I won't be having too many more of those for a while. But after I got done cutting them, this is just showing a little bit of a video of what I ended up giving to my chickens. So they love it. It is, especially this time of year, they don't have the access to fresh greens any more than I do. So when I cut my microgreens, there's usually some, left there. I can only go so close because I don't want to get that soil in with my greens. So they're always happy to take the leftovers. This is just some bread that we had with some peppers that I made for Sunday night. And it's bread I made a week or two ago, and it overproofed a little bit. So rather than take it to that function where I'd made like 12 loaves to take for the Mardi Gras party last week, I just put those overproofed ones in the freezer, and we just had it with these peppers. I actually poured over some canned homemade enchilada sauce and put them on a bed of rice, and I forgot to take the after picture, so you don't get to see that part. And that's it for the meals that I cooked, because everything, like I said, was leftover. What's coming up here is actually a video that I took when I had my farmer's market business, and that was the name of it. I know it's kind of kooky. It's my Turkey Hollow Twilight Zone, but it's kind of named after where I live, the road I live on, and the fact that the Twilight Zone is always ever present when you're trying to grow things to sell, because things just tend to not always turn out the way you plan. But anyway, this is just kind of how I had my setup. I had things covered up in the spring when the weather is really volatile. And if you're going to get, some frost temperatures, you don't want your plants to get destroyed by the frost. And since I was selling it, I didn't want to have to worry about losing plants. So, anyway, I just wanted to kind of talk about what I'm going to be doing this summer as far as growing and food production, and how anybody could grow things no matter where you live. You have the opportunity to grow things. I am fortunate that I have a big enough property that I had huge gardens, and I don't have acres and acres of property here in Illinois. I have 1 acre, and I was able to grow enough to take food to a farmer's market. I had a CSA, that membership that I had. It was just a small CSA. Oh, these are our dogs. They are, you can't show a video without showing the dogs. They are our loves. One of them has passed of old age by now, the first one that you saw. So anyway, while I did have a period of time where I was growing huge amounts of food for the farmer's market and a CSA, I'm going to be showing you this year how I'm not going to be doing that. I have not done the farmer's market or CSA now for a couple of years, just because it is a huge undertaking. And I already have a full-time job, and this was also a full-time job for about 8 to 9 months out of the year. And so it just got to be where I couldn't manage everything without being totally stressed out. I mean, when you're working 80 hours a week, it's rough. So anyway, this year I still have 2 very large garden areas, even though some of what you're seeing here was seeded over after I stopped doing it for the farmer's market. But my gardens have been working hard for a lot of years. And so I look at the amount of food I have, processed and stored and frozen, canned, dehydrated, all the things. And I feel like I'm at a point now where my gardens can take a break. Right here, you're kind of seeing my setup that I had for the farmer's market, and how I had things set up. As things would get taken, I had coolers in my Jeep that I would pull more produce out of and put on the table. But that's the setup that I had for my market garden. And then you're going to be seeing some photos of groupings of vegetables, and that is what I gave to my CSA members. And just so you can kind of get a glimpse of what kinds of things I put together for them. But as far as gardening this year, I am so blessed that I have so much put back that I just think it's time to give my gardens a break. And so what I'm going to be doing this year is I will be doing some container gardening. So I will be showing, how to do some of that. But the garden beds themselves, other than the things I've already planted, because I already, before I decided this, had planted garlic and shallots last fall. So those will be coming up, and I will be harvesting those. But I also have perennial vegetables and fruit. So I have perennial onions. They're called Egyptian walking onions, and they will be coming up this spring on their own. So I'll have those to use for fresh. I have a lot of onions. I had a really bumper crop last year, so I have a lot of onions that I'm probably going to be getting ready to cut up and either dehydrate or or freeze, and maybe even ferment some of them that I'll have to use this coming year. But I have perennial onions. I have strawberries and raspberries and goji berries, and my blueberry plants are there. They're awful small, but they do produce a little something. I have rhubarb, elderberries. Hopefully I'll have some honeyberries this year. I do have some fruit trees, but they are new enough that they're not producing yet. So, but I'll be, doing some care for them. But what I really want to do this year is take down all the garden fencing that I have. It is looking pretty rough over the years. It's, just wear and tear. And there's some of it I'm probably not even going to put back up. In my herbal, I have herbs also that are perennials. I have some, in that garden where my perennial things are and my herbs. And I also have some of my bees there. I'm probably going to take that fence down, and I'm thinking I'm not going to put another one up. My other garden that is more for annual planting, and my greenhouse also kind of sits in there, I am going to be taking that fence down, and I would really like to put a new, more heavy duty permanent fencing around that. Where I live, I have so many little critters that they invite themselves to lunch all the time. So I have to have a way to keep them out if I want to have the produce for myself. So I do want to redo the fence on the one garden. And so when I take that fencing down around these gardens, I will be then taking my chickens out there in a portable run and have them do some of their magic in the soil and try to do some regeneration on the soil. I feel like they can fertilize it. They can keep it weeded for me. They can, they love eating bugs, and there's larvae that winters over under the soil, and then they, come out later in the year and are the pests that you don't want, like the Japanese beetles or the potato beetles, or, squash bugs, things like that. And they will eat them while they're scratching around out there. So I'm hoping that that is going to help with some pest control and also help fertilize the soil at the same time. The perennial garden, it has a lot of annual space in it too, so they will be out there working on that one, but I will, continue to harvest from the things that are going to come up on their own. There's no sense in wasting that. But I also really want to work on like redoing my raspberry arbor, and I've tried and tried and tried to get grapes going here, and they start and then rabbits and deer eat them off. And so I just want to work on getting that going again, get a really nice arbor up for the grapes, and a way to protect them until they are large enough that I don't have to worry about the pests. And then my bees. I really struggled last year with just maintaining my bees. I ended up with more hives than what I really had time to handle, with working full time, taking care, helping my dad who's elderly, having all these huge gardens and the bees, and just maintenance of my home in general. I just didn't have time to do all the work that was really required to maintain my bees. I still have bees, but I want to, some of them did die over the winter, and that is not an unusual thing, but more died than what I would have liked. But I just really want to focus on getting the hives healthy again, and really get a program structure down and on paper so that I'm not missing key things. Like, when am I checking my mite status? When am I looking for, hive beetles? Do they need to be, does a hive need to be split because they're getting ready to, divide and swarm? So, there's just a lot of things I need to get a little more organization on as far as my bees. So those are kind of the the things I really want to work on this year. So even though I'm not going to be doing big gardens, I do have the perennial things, and I will be working on garden projects. The things that I am going to do that plant, though, will be in containers. And I can't go a summer without fresh tomatoes or fresh lettuce or, maybe a few bell peppers and some jalapenos. I have a lot of peppers in storage. I don't think I need any hot peppers this year. I've got so many in storage. And the only ones I really, really love to make sure, as far as with a little bit of heat to them, they're not super hot, but it's the jalapenos. So some fresh bell peppers, some fresh jalapenos, probably the only peppers I need, and a variety of lettuces and greens. And I've already planted a few cabbage seeds, but not an abundance, just a few. And I will be doing tomatoes. And I've also still have some seed potatoes. I grow my own potatoes. I keep my own seed potatoes. I am going to be finding a place to grow those also in containers. I have done potato towers before, and that works really well, but I think I'm just going to actually do it in actual containers. I did buy some grow bags that I'm going to use, and just anything I'm growing is really just going to be inside of my privacy fence, which is a very small area of my yard, so that to help keep the dogs in and things like that. So it's kind of a private area of my yard, and that's where I'm going to be growing the majority of what I have. I do have a greenhouse, but it gets super hot in the summertime. So in the depths of summer, nothing will grow in there. It would just burn up. And because I don't have temperature regulation in there, it's just strictly a greenhouse. And I love it, but it's the dead of winter, and in the really deep heat of summer, it just says a couple months there where I can't really use it. So, but I will be using it for what I can, and just start working on maintenance around here, things that need to be maintained. And I'm hoping that I will be able to show that there's so much you can do in containers. There is so much that even if you don't have a big property, that you can do. I will be planting potatoes in a container area. I also have sweet potatoes that I've saved back to make sweet potato slips from, and I will be planting those in containers as well. And there's just really so much you can do. Now, there are containers, I think they're called green stocks, if I remember right, that are vertical, and a lot of people use those to grow. I don't have one. I might consider getting one, but I don't know that I really need one, but we'll see as time goes on if that's something I want to get. But there's so much you can do vertically, and even in the gardens that I have, when I have my big gardens outside, I do so many things vertically. Cucumbers, squashes, melons. I trellis them to go up instead of sprawling all over the place. So, there's just so much you can do in a small area, smaller than you realize that you can do. And I'm really looking forward to doing a lot of experimenting with that, and hopefully be able to teach others, since, I do have some experience behind me at growing food, as you can see. So some things might be an experience, but I even started out growing in containers. I grew up on a farm. We always had really big gardens. But when I moved out on my own, I didn't have all that. And so I started out growing in containers and little tiny plots, next to my house. And I mean, if you have a rental property, you can't always dig a garden up. You have to do in containers. Or if you're in an apartment, there's only so much you can do, but if you've got a balcony or a little patio out there, there's so much you can do in containers. This is a picture of my little chicken coop. I do not have a huge flock of chickens. When I started with chickens, I got 4 chickens, and that's really probably more than what I would ever need. I'm down to 2 right now because 2 of them turned out to be roosters. I would still like to go back to getting a couple more this spring. We'll see if that works out for me. But I was still able to store eggs for the winter. I still have 3.5, I think 3.5 half-gallon jars of stored eggs, and I have some in the freezer. Plus, I'm still getting fresh eggs. And so pretty soon I'll probably start getting those fresh eggs in storage in the lime solution, just so that I can get the other ones used up while they're still good. But I really want to get a handle on the rest of my property, and I really, really think that you would be amazed at the things that you can grow in containers in your, on your patio or on your balcony, or even in your living room if you have a nice big, south-facing window once you get them started. I even have a friend who, as an experiment, grew vegetables to full size in her basement over a winter, and she was able to get vegetables off of these things. They were things that didn't have to be cross-pollinated or anything, but and she was able, they were self-pollinating, and she was able to get things. Now, they didn't produce as much in a basement. She had grow lights on them, but she got something. And so, I mean, that's even something you could think about if you've got grow lights that you can put over top of them. And I do. That's how I start my seeds for the most part. I start them in the basement. It's how I grow my microgreens, in my basement. And I just have a shelving system with just, they're not even real grow lights. They're shop lights. And it works fine for me. It's what I used the whole time I was doing the farmer's market and the CSA. And, it worked fine for me. So there's a lot you can do when you don't own a big piece of property. And it's amazing to see how a seed, something from a seed, because I start everything from a seed except my seed potatoes are an actual potato. It's just amazing how that grows into something so beautiful and edible. And you will never taste anything better than something that you grew out of your own garden with your own seeds. So this will probably be the last video I do as far as pantry challenge goes. I will be completing the challenge, but I've got leftovers to eat this week, and I do have a plan in place that on Saturday, March 2nd, I will be picking up and paying for 1/4 of a cow to get my storage back up in my freezer. As far as beef goes, I am going to get a little bit of pork too, but I'm hoping to get more of that at another time. But right now I'm just going to get the beef. And it's just, I've been budgeting for groceries all along here. So I knew that I was going to do some restocking at the end of this. I just wanted to get things that really need to be used. So that happened. And now I'm going to be starting fresh, and hopefully you guys learned something that was valuable to you through all of the people that did the pantry challenge. And I hope you guys have a great week coming up, and hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.